Hello, my name is Nick Lockhart and welcome to today's podcast on successful landlord hacks. There are big disruptive forces destined to change things in the technological space, but they're also changing the way we live, the way we invest, and changing the landscape for landlords. Many property investors are doing it wrongly. They're leaving money on the table. Are you? In this podcast, we look at 8 ways to increase the rental return on your property, ways that you may be hemorrhaging money and not even know it, and how to future-proof your income and assets and stay sane while building your property portfolio. But before we start, I'd like to draw your attention to the disclaimer on the screen. Today's podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. Rather, it's educational information that will hopefully challenge mindsets or paradigms and assist you in making better, more informed decisions that allow you into or perhaps back into the property market sooner. Firstly, and for the benefit of those not familiar with MRD Partners, we're a boutique family business that specialises in the investment property and finance spaces. We have proven ourselves to be a reliable and consistent partner to clients for a very long time. That partnership and support to property investors goes all the way back to the 15th of May 2002. While most in the real estate industry tend to focus on the next transaction, that is, merely selling a property before moving on to the next prospect, the MRD way is to partner with you over the long term. We want to help you get clear about your goals, creatively strategize with you so you can achieve those goals over time, and give you financial choices that most people will sadly never enjoy. We teach that it's the responsible use of the right kind of debt that can build wealth for you and your family's future. We don't believe debt ought to be feared, but it must be respected and used wisely. So this podcast serves to give support to those experiencing information overwhelm, to make sense of the topic, to provide you with clarity from all the white noise that we're being bombarded with every day from social media, newspapers, online news feeds and emails, to give you the best support and direction so your property investing experience is positive. People who experience problems with property investing usually give up and tell their friends it didn't work. As such, they also give up on their dream of building a property portfolio to replace their salary. I want to give you the right education so that once implemented, you experience being a landlord as easy and see yourself as successful. Around 31% of Australians, or about 7.5 million people, live in rental properties. That's up on the 27.5% who rented back in 1995 and means more and more of us are becoming landlords. The first of my 11 successful landlord hacks is get maximum tax depreciation. A quantity surveyor will itemize exactly what and how much your investment property business allows you to claim back from the taxes you pay. Known as a depreciation schedule, this report will cost you around $500 or perhaps $600. Since budget night in May 2017, second-hand residential property offers property investors little to no claim, subject to the age of the property. New properties still attract full depreciation. So here's our first key takeaway. Are you maximising your legitimate claim from the Australian Tax Office, or are you leaving money on the table? The second successful landlord hack is to use an accountant that invests in property. No, not all accountants are the same. Some merely record what happened and tell you how much you owe the tax department, while others will plan with you ahead of time to ensure you legitimately minimise your tax obligation. One of the team members here at MRD used to own a high-profile Australian franchise. One afternoon, one of her full-time retail staff came to her complaining that his accountant had told him he had to pay a $600 tax bill. She was understandably taken back and quite livid for her employee. How could someone on a full-time retail salary of $36,000, that was back then, have tax taken from his salary every week, yet still owe another $600 at the end of the financial year? So she urged him to go to her accountant for a second opinion, which he did. And within a month, he received a tax refund of $1,800. That's a $2,400 difference. All accountants are not the same. And if your accountant is not a property investor, you really have to ask yourself, why not? Is it a lack of understanding of the benefits? Or perhaps no money to invest? Either way, both are grounds for finding a better accountant. The third of my successful landlord hacks is to employ a property manager. It's possible to go it alone as a landlord and manage all your properties yourself, but employing an expert property manager, usually a licensed real estate agent, as a middleman can save you a lot of headaches in the long run. And ride them. Demand service. After all, you're paying for it. There are now dozens of new places where your property can be advertised online to attract tenants, including dozens of Facebook groups. Make sure all of your listings are responsive. Ask your property manager to text you the URLs where they have advertised so you can see how your property looks yourself. Nag them until you're 110% happy with the description they've used about your property. A picture tells 1,000 words. Still, unless the rental market is extremely tight, have a professional take photos of your property so yours stands out. Sure, this will cost you, but it's tax deductible and having your property vacant will cost you more. Your property manager should start advertising a month prior to the end of the current lease. Call the property manager every Monday to get an update on how many calls came in about your property, how many inspections were booked and held. Do it every Monday. Remember, your property manager works for you. So until they've proven themselves as being highly competent, ride them and demand service. Alter your letting agreements before signing so that repairs over $100 have to be run past you. Not this repairs less than 1 week's rent don't need your approval stuff. Insist that they discuss what you want to do at the end of each tenancy, not merely tell you that your tenant has re-signed for another year at the same rent, as many do. Go online and do your own research as to what properties like yours are renting for and how many are available right now. You may be very surprised to discover your tenant is about to be re-signed with no rental increase when similar properties available for rent are scarce and $20 a week more. Be the squeaky hinge. Remember, that's the one that gets the oil. You're one of hundreds, perhaps thousands, of the landlords they service. So keep them on their toes by being the one they're most concerned of upsetting. I'm not saying your property manager is lazy, but there are a lot of lazy ones out there with a care factor that's quite low. If you are concerned about one of your property managers, email us with the details of where your property is, and we may be able to recommend an alternative from our network of on-the-ball property managers. Number 4 of 11 is plan ahead. Get landlords protection insurance. We've all seen those sensational tenant from hell stories that a current affair runs about every 6 months. How irresponsible is it for them to fail to say that for less than $300 a year, the property owner would have been completely covered? Weather, bad tenants, damage, and missing rent. You're covered if you have landlord's insurance in place. Not all policies are the same, however, so ensure yours covers what you need it to. And the fact that the premium is so low tells us that people making such claims is rare. Again, making those sensational tenant from hell shows incredibly misleading. Send us an email if you're unsure or you want us to point you in the right direction for your landlord's insurance, and we'll happily do that. Number 5, be aware of your legal responsibilities. All landlords should ensure they're familiar with their rights and responsibilities under Australian law. The landlord-tenant relationship is governed by the Rental Tenancy Act of each state and territory in Australia. And if you fail, for example, to issue the right breach notice to a tenant who falls behind on paying rent and then does a runner in the middle of the night, you will void your insurances. This is another reason why you're best to employ property managers. They know the processes to follow and they have professional indemnity insurance to cover any losses you occur as a result of them being derelict in their duties. 6, document and communicate. Look, if you still insist on managing your own investment properties, be sure to always use the correct paperwork, from lease agreements to breach notices if ever required. Communicate effectively and follow up verbal discussions with an email to confirm. You want a paper trail of what's been discussed so there can be no ambiguity, confusion, or disagreement. Good and effective communication is a key to a successful tenancy. Your expectations as to how your property should be kept needs to be clearly communicated with your property manager or tenant if you're managing it yourself well in advance. Have them confirm back in writing that they agree or what they counter offer if not. Number 7, administer the bond correctly. Always collect the appropriate rental bond up front to protect you against property damage and or loss of rent. Your tenants will take much better care of your property knowing they have something to lose if they don't. As you know, a landlord can't hold this bond themselves. It must be lodged with the appropriate state or territory residential tenancy bond authority who will hold the bond throughout the tenancy. While a bond can be withheld to compensate for property damage or loss of rent, it cannot be held for fair wear and tear. The 8th successful landlord hack is look after your best asset, that is your tenant or tenants. Attracting good tenants who treat your property as if it was their own is every landlord's dream. Be sure your property is well presented and desirable. Treat your tenant with respect. It's their home. If you need to send a tradesperson around for repairs or improvements, for example, ensure the tenant is given the appropriate advance notice. Good communication and respect will go a long way to keeping your tenant happy. You may even want to send them a Christmas card or a thank you note that acknowledges how well they've been looking after the property. Number 9 of 11, know where to find quick, economical handymen. There are dozens of new online platforms where you can post jobs and get almost instant quotes. For example, Airtasker. I have an entrepreneur friend who broke her wrist recently. She airtasked everything in her life, literally everything. Picking up groceries, cutting up her meals, cleaning out the food in her holiday home because she wasn't able to visit the holiday home for weeks while her wrist was mending. She was surprised and reassured by the high level of integrity and quality of the work and service she received. Others include One Flare and Gumtree. Number 10 of our successful landlord hacks involves the financial strategy set up when you take out your investment loan. Number 10 of our successful landlord hacks involves the financial strategy set up when you take out your investment loan. As a property investor, you should have your finances structured in such a way as to pay off your home loan in record time. Too many people I speak with have not been set up with the advanced financing strategies that bring this about. Take advantage of all the bank products available to you, not just the ones your bank gave you. Remember, bank loan writers are just employees of large financial institutions. What do they know about wealth creation strategies? Chances are they've never owned an investment property. It would be inappropriate for me to discuss specific finance strategies in a public presentation such as this, but if you have any doubts as to whether or not your finance structure is the most appropriate, then we would be happy to speak with you one-on-one. And the last of our 11 points in this section includes 8 innovative ways to maximize your earnings. Please note some of these suggestions could apply equally to your own home or your investment property. Your rental property is an investment, so where possible, maximize your rental income. You should keep an eye on market rents, choose a desirable area in which to invest, and make sure your property is well maintained. I'd like to outline quickly, without going into detail of each item, 8 ways you can earn extra income from your investment property or, in this first way, your own home. Perhaps rent out a room, a couple of rooms, or maybe even your entire home during peak season holiday periods using online platforms such as Airbnb. Your investment property may also be ideal for Airbnb, subject to body corporate bylaws and so forth. I know of someone who owns a beautiful home in Ocean Shores, northern New South Wales. He earns $950 a night, renting out his home during the Byron Bay music festivals. His is a beautiful home, which is why he earns so much. When the music festival is on, he simply moves back to his mum's place for a few days. Number 2, rent your garage space to a neighbour or a random. I have a client with a large property portfolio, including a 1-bedroom Sydney CBD apartment. His tenant doesn't have a car, so he rents that car spot out separately for a lot more than he's discounted the rent given to the tenant without the car. Now, if the tenant was smarter, he would have taken the car spot on the tenancy and rented it out separately himself to subsidise some of his rent. But in this case, it's the landlord who gets the benefit. Is your property able to be subdivided? Now, this is a little slower, not a quick turnaround option, and subdividing will cost you up front. However, in the long run, It'll add significant capital growth to your property and generate extra cash flow. If this is possible for you, it's definitely a very smart investment strategy to look into. We've assisted various clients to invest into duplex properties that are on a single title, and as part of the purchase contract, the properties are subdivided so that at settlement they have an immediate uplift in equity. And this works because the sum of the two titles is of greater value than that of the whole of the one, if that makes sense. The tiny house movement could be to your advantage. Again, subject to town planning laws and so forth, and this also is not a quick turnaround option. But if you have the available financial resources and you're okay with having a tenant in your backyard, you could build or buy a tiny home to add some great cash flow to your budget bottom line. Renting out a fully furnished property. Now, if your property is located where there is a demand for furnished property, you could do just that. You just need to check that first. Gumtree is full of free, near new furniture that just requires you to go and pick it up. In some instances, this free furniture will even attract a tax deduction, but that's something you'll need to check with your accountant. Or have your property manager ask any potential tenants, what do you want? For example, if it's a big smart television that they want, then buy one and put it into your rental property. Let me explain. Even if you spent $5,000, and you don't have to, but $5,000 on a top quality smart TV to go into your rental property, using borrowed money and paying 5% interest, that's only going to cost you $4.80 a week in additional repayments. Not only can you depreciate the cost of the TV against your taxes and claim the $4.80 a week interest, your tenant's likely to pay at least $10, maybe $15 or $20 a week in additional rent, and will be very reluctant to move out anytime soon, knowing that they would have to leave their television behind. So the tenant and the taxman pay for the TV, which earns you favour with your tenant and keeps your vacancy rate reduced, which equals more money in your pocket. And here are some creative and very lucrative ways of earning extra cash. Renting out your garden to campers may be an option for you, subject to where you live and if a camper would want to be there. Home Camp is a startup that launched in 2015, and it allows you to advertise your home's garden to travellers. They'll pay to come along, pitch a tent, and stay a night or three. Victoria and Sydney have the most listings on the website, ranging in price from $10 to $50 a night. Once you hear the numbers, it doesn't sound as crazy as you might have first thought. An alternative to someone staying in your home is to provide a safe space for their storage needs. An innovative Australian company called Spacer allows you to rent out your space for self-storage, acting as a link between those with empty rooms and those with storage needs. This could be a garage, a spare room, sheds, basements, attic space, or in your backyard. Or you could earn $150 to $250 a month for allowing someone to store a boat, caravan, or vehicle in your driveway or elsewhere on your property. Now to the last of these 8 innovative ways to maximise your earnings. With parking prices skyrocketing in many inner city areas and growing congestions, your driveway could be a goldmine. If you're in a sought-after area, particularly near employment hubs, there could be an opportunity for you to make money from this space. Some homeowners advertise directly to locals, but another option is to market vacant parking space on Parkhound. The amount you can earn varies significantly, but it could be more than $3,600 a year. Parkhound suggests checking the price of local on- and off-street parking and ensuring your asking cost is a little lower. A bond is charged and the booking provides a legally binding contract. Another website offering a similar service is Just Park. Latest research in investment widens the wealth gap. Wealthy Australians are getting richer quicker because they are investing, not because of their wages. The incomes of the nation's top 20% wealthiest households are growing 50% faster than average households and their net worth is rising at twice the pace. Wealth specialists and social researchers say the rise reflects growing investments rather than wage income, and they expect the gap between the haves and the have-nots to widen further. Between 2010 and 2016, the average weekly income for the highest quintile, or 20%, household rose 12% to $5,036 a week. A News Corp Australia analyst of Bureau of Statistics data tells me this. Other households' income climbs 7 to 8%, apart from an 11% rise for the bottom 20% thanks to increasing welfare payments. The net worth of the richest jumped 15% to $2.91 million, while the poorest 20% rose just 0.6% to $36,500. The researchers say that the spread between rich and poor is likely to widen further as wage growth remains flat, but superannuation, property, shares and other assets grow. So the key takeaways are: 1. Asking for a pay rise is not a wealth accumulation strategy. And number 2, it's what you do with your money that's important. So the question, what will you do with this information? And no, I'm not addressing high flyers earning big bucks. Normal, average, everyday people are building massive wealth using property as their preferred investment vehicle. That includes teachers, nurses, IT people, salespeople, personal assistants, doctors, tradies, and the list goes on. The thing they have in common are their set goals. They want property to build their net worth that leads to increased cash flow. They want to step off that treadmill and escape the rat race for a more exciting and rewarding lifestyle, and who wouldn't? They will often leverage their superannuation, turning their balance into a deposit so they can buy property in a self-managed superannuation fund, and they're quite intentional about creating real wealth for their family. Mostly they consider themselves to be beginners or first-time buyers, but in some cases with intermediate experience. We've worked with thousands of clients since 2002, representing ages from 20 to 62. While not a hard and fast rule, ideally individuals earning over $80,000 a year or couples with a combined income of $100,000 plus generally have great investment property options available to them. To qualify to borrow money, you need to have a cash deposit of about $50,000 or more, or access to at least $80,000 of available equity in another property. This may be your home, an investment property, or even your parents' home. Where someone lacks the deposit, we can assist with strategies that will slice between 2 and 5 years from the time it takes them to save. For those that have concluded that using their superannuation balance to leverage into property is an appropriate strategy for them, it may be possible to get started with as little as a little over $100,000. Now, I cannot, nor will I make any recommendations around whether or not setting up a SMSF to leverage into property is an appropriate strategy for you. However, I can say with absolute authority that if you fail to understand your investment options, your rights and obligations, then you are not making wise and informed decisions. So my advice, and I use that term loosely, is to get the knowledge needed to make wise and informed decisions to better position you financially down the track. Failing to do so very often results in opportunity cost. Typically, the mindset of these everyday average people who are growing their wealth at a faster pace than most is one of readiness. They know they need to take action. Sure, most start out nervous, a little unsure of taking that first step. I guess in part that's why my team here at MRD Partners places such importance on mentoring, supporting, and partnering with you. So, have I described you just now? Let's look at your wealth goals in 2018. Where are you right now with your money goals? Did you promise yourself last year that you'd buy, renovate, or sell? Selling should always be your last option, in my opinion. Are you still in the same position as this time last year? Have you ever reverse engineered to determine what your inaction has cost and is still actually costing you? Let us help you. We help people to get a deposit faster, between 2 and 5 years sooner. We're happy to assess your current situation and then, where applicable, apply one or more of the various strategies we have that will add value to your current position. That's a complimentary, no obligation and no strings attached offer. We only get paid when we're able to add measurable value to you, making this a true win-win. Perhaps the same could go for your super. Again, I need to stress that I'm not a financial advisor and I cannot and will not offer financial advice. What I can do, however, is empower you with the knowledge you need to make more informed decisions about your super. Of course, should you want to explore the possibility of self-managing your super, we're able to recommend a number of independent licensed advisors to assist you to do what's in your best interest. Alternatively, you may already have an independent advisor that you're confident is not biased towards where he or she wants you to invest your super. There are strategies that have successfully helped others leverage their super into property years sooner, much sooner than they thought was possible. Given that time in the market is a key ingredient to successful property investing, such strategies can be enormously beneficial and profitable. And we have access to great cash flow positive property as well as faster equity producing properties. But first comes strategy, after which we individually source the property that best fits your situation. Well, that's it for today. I trust this podcast has taught you some things. Be sure to follow MRD Partners on Facebook and Twitter, and subscribe to my newsletter updates so you hear about and receive the links to our regular educational videos and podcasts. You can do that at mrdpartners.com.au. Now, your next step is to hit the escape key on your keyboard to exit full screen. And from there, you'll see a link that will allow you to book a one-on-one appointment with me. If you have questions or you want to respond to anything else you've learnt today, send an email to hello@mrdpartners.com.au and we'll be happy to help in any way we can. Ciao for now.